Just first of all, can you bring us up to speed on your squad? A couple of amendments to the group for this. Ben Davies is in. How pleased to have him available, but also Yanis Hagi. What does the future hold for him? He's been taken out.
Yeah, obviously Ben comes back in because Ridvan's not fit, and I feel that Rabbi has, in the last couple of weeks, shown a good face in terms of his speed and his directness, and we may need it over the two legs. No issue with Yanis. I think Yanis, as he put in his own words, is very happy when he's playing football, and he's missed football for a year. He wants to play as a starter week in, week out, so it may be that between now and the end of the window we look at that. I thought he did well when he came into the game at the weekend.
They've also amended their squad. Malik Tillman is one of the players to be brought in. Does that irk you at all to see him line up as part of their group when he perhaps could have been part of your selection?
Well, two things on that. You know, the agreement was in place before I come in terms of how it was structured, and we stuck to our side of the agreement. Quite frustratingly for us, Bayern Munich stuck to their side and did the buyback that they had. But Malik knows that outside of the games against Rangers that he's got our full support. He was fantastic for us. I spoke to him a lot over the summer. He's just back from a long-term injury, and I think it's a good move for him, so we wish him well outside of these games, obviously.
Can I just finally ask what you constitute as a good result from this first match at Ibrox? It's
about setting the second leg up. We know we need to go across to Eindhoven and put in a fantastic performance regardless of what happens tomorrow night. Tomorrow night is the first look of two very good teams coming up against each other. I think we're up against a formidable opponent. It's when I look at the draw of the other legs, then I think we're saying we're playing against probably the strongest side we could play right now. It's a real big opportunity for the club, for the players and the fans and everybody, and so I'm looking for us to show a real strong foot in the first leg and set up the second leg in Eindhoven.
Michael, there's been a lot of talk of revenge on the PSV players' minds, coupled with the start they've had to the season and what they did against Sturm Graz. What sort of test are you expecting against them?
The sternest test I think that we'll probably face across the season. I think they're a very, very good team. They've invested in the squad heavily, really good players. There's no doubt about that. I'm not so sure about the things around revenge. It's two different coaches. I think me and Peter have got a lot to live up to in terms of Ruud and Gio. They both did excellent jobs in their times at the club, and it's a lot of changes in personnel in both teams.
You obviously made changes at the weekend. Do you now have a clearer idea of your strongest 11, or indeed did you get any maybe food for thought and what could be your strongest 11 from the weekend?
Well, little things are starting to happen. The new players have all now started a game, and I think Jack in goal has had his big moments last week in Servette, which you need as a Rangers goalkeeper. The forwards have started scoring, so Cyril's got 2 goals and assist in 4 starts. Danilo's got 2 goals in 3 starts. So I'm looking at positives in terms of certainly after the first weekend of the season, we've shown a positive face in terms of getting results. We made a lot of changes at the weekend, and we won and have gone through, and we've got a nice home draw. So everything's fine with that. The focus right now is just on tomorrow night, and I think it's a squad game, and I think we're going to need 14, 15 players in both games to step up for sure.
Just how important, Michael, is it that your forward players are, at their most clinical in these types of matches?
We've got a lot of variety. So when you're looking at maybe playing against us, you're unsure of who we're going to pick and how the front line's going to look at. I think that's a bonus to have as a manager of a team when another side is looking at seeing how you might set up. And certainly if you're not playing, there's a way that we can change the game with the guys off the side. And I think the front players, it's a big moment, these 2 games, and it's a moment where big players will hopefully step up and show their worth.
Just how important is it that Rangers are playing Champions League football this season?
Well, it's hugely important to the players because I know it's their dream and their ambition. It would be important because it would be more finances than obviously going into the Europa League. We know we're guaranteed that, so these 2 games we can play with a clear mind and go right for them. We don't need to worry about whether we're in or out. I've sat beside Steven Gerrard in our time here where they were real do-or-die moments against Galatasaray, Legia Warsaw, Ufa, for example, to get into Europe or not be. So this one, we know we're in European football up to Christmas. It's what competition, and in our way is an excellent team, but it's a fantastic opportunity for everybody.
You mentioned the finances there. Should you be successful, might that impact what transfer business you can do, in the next week or so, both in and out?
Well, it's likely to be more outs than in just because of the size of the squad, I think. I think the board have invested well from January down, 13, 14 million from January down on 11 players. So when you say 11 players, it don't sound like a lot, but when you obviously put the price of 3 or 4. But I think in the transfer market so far, we've done extremely well. If you think of Raskin, Cifuentes and Cantwell costing combined 2 million. There's good business been done by this club. Butland on a free transfer, Dow, Sterling. So the money's been spent in the front areas. We did lose 5 or 6 players in that area. So maybe 1 or 2 out. If we can get one in that I think is going to make the starting team stronger, then that will be great. And I don't think that's going to depend too much on what happens in these 2 games.
How much would it mean to you as a manager to take this club into the Champions League group stages and test yourself against some of the best teams and best managers in the world?
Well, ultimately, that's why you came back when the opportunity was there. You run back to Glasgow because that's part of being manager of this club, those opportunities that it gives you. I know when speaking to the players in the summer, this opportunity was huge. We knew we'd have to overcome 2 tough ties. We'd done one. Now we've got a big challenge the next 10 days or so. And look, I think everyone knows that that's the competition that players want to play in. It. You want to pit yourself against the best, and I think our fans want to see the big nights here in Europe. And let's go hell for leather for that. If it's not that, then we'll go for the Europa League. It's a competition we've been in, but at this moment in time, our full focus is on trying to qualify, of course.
Michael, just in terms of PSV and your opponents tomorrow night, where do they rank in terms of toughest challenges that you've faced in your time at Rangers? Because on paper, certainly look as if they're one of the hardest kind of opposition that Rangers have come up against.
Offensively, I think they're an excellent team. I think got some very, very good players, some players that are sought after. They've recruited well. I think they've got a good coach who's got good experience in Europe and in different domestic leagues as well. So it's a tough challenge. It's a great opportunity for us. It's up there with pretty much who we've played. Certainly in the attacking positions, it's important that we show our quality as well and hurt them at the times that we can.
Can I just return and ask you about Yanis Hagi? You said it's something you might have to revisit before the window closes. Has there been a discussion? Has Yanis asked to leave because he would like more first-team football? Is there anything come of that as a result, maybe of the last couple of days?
No, I mean, Yanis spoke after 3 or 4 days of pre-season about, he missed a year. I brought Yanis back into the team against Partick Thistle last year very early into his rehab, and it was clear at that moment he wasn't ready. Over the summer he's worked really hard to be fit. I wouldn't say he's at optimal fitness right now, and I think the conversation with us has always been very honest. He's a player that I have a strong relationship with on a personal level, and his desire is he wants to be a main starter and play every single game, and no one's got that guarantee here at Rangers. He's competing with Todd Cantwell for that role and maybe Sam Lammers and 1 or 2 others. Tom Lawrence is now returning. So it's more what does Yanis need to get back after being out for a year with an ACL. And those conversations and options Yanis and his agent have been looking at for the last week or so. So in the background there's been a lot going on.
Michael, you spoke about Malik there, and obviously Bayern exercising their right to take him back. But your discussions with him, was there ever a point where you felt the deal was going to go through, and when it came away, how disruptive was it with your planning? Was he somebody that you could see yourself building a team around for this season?
Oh, he's a fantastic young player. I don't want to go too far into it, but the agreement was a number that we had to hit, and Bayern could hit a number straight back, and they did that, and he's their player. That was their prerogative. So in a way that showed the value that Bayern had on him. They've only loaned him out again this year. So Malik's got a lot of people that like him in football. There was a lot of clubs who called me to ask reference on young Malik. He's coming back from not a serious injury, but a difficult injury. And as I say, after these 2 games, we wish him well.
Michael, you mentioned over your time that the strikers need to be a bit more clinical. Obviously a different type of game tomorrow than what we've been used to over the last couple of weeks. Have you asked them to do anything different? There'll be less chances. Have you asked them to maybe go into different areas of the pitch or take shots from different areas at all for this one?
Well, we've got a plan, but I'm not going to sell it to the world today, if I'm honest. But no, look, as I said, if you come into a new club, I think Danilo started 3 games and he scored 2 goals, and he's had other opportunities, namely in Servette, and he hit the post here last week against Livingston, and Cyril came off of not playing last year, and I think he started 4 games, he's got 2 goals and assists. Give him a chance, guys, come on. Like they're new in the country, new in the league. They've hit in numbers already. They've rotated a little bit. We know that losing Arfield, Tillman, Kent, Morelos, Sakala, Cholak, there was going to be a period of time where these players were going to need to come together. I think certainly the first result, the first game of the season, heightened all the emotion, but since then I've seen some good signs from the guys. And
just on Ridvan, you'd mentioned maybe last week that he might have been available. Has he had a setback on his injury?
No, he's the only current player not training, so there's 26, 27 outfield players fit at the moment in the squad, with a mixture of young ones thrown in. Ridvan will return to training after this game, and the weekend might come a little bit too soon for him, but certainly after that we've got a clean bill of health. So the work that Mark Waller and the sports science and the medical team have done over the summer to rectify the issues we had with injuries has been fantastic.
Michael, do you need the team's biggest performance since you become manager of Rangers?
I think so, yeah. I think this is a big game. It's so early in the season, but it's clear that it's a big game, and we won't know if either team are really ready, because neither team's had the challenge of a team like this in the pressure of this game, which is huge for both clubs. But certainly, if we was to come out the other side of it, yeah, it would be because of 2 really big performances.
Michael, I mean, you referred to earlier to the Champions League and the Europa League safety net. I mean, you can never really be pressure free in these games, or can you? I mean, how much can the Europa League comfort can it give you?
No, listen, what we're trying to do at the moment is play the game that's in front of us and the competition that's in front of us. I think, once we get this first leg out of the way, we have a huge game at the weekend in the league. Everyone's aware of that. Every 3 days here at Rangers, there's a huge game. The expectation's huge. You see the outcry after a defeat in this city. It's massive. Even sometimes when you win, not everybody's happy with the way that you won or the team that you picked or the changes. It's par for the course. I wouldn't want to trade with anybody else for the job and the position that I'm sat in. That expectation is what you want. You can call it pressure, but listen, tomorrow night my team play against an excellent team in the Champions League. Within that, there's a lot to enjoy, and it's important that we embrace it and give it everything. We won't think about the other competition until this competition is not there for us.
Yeah.
Cyril Dessers, we know him quite well in Holland. What's your impression of him as a player and as a person? Because we know him as quite a character. What's your experience with that?
Yeah, I don't think anyone in Scotland's really seen that yet. I think Cyril's come in, he's been very well behaved, and he likes to put himself about and bump into people. I think we started seeing that a bit more from the weekend, and he has a good history against PSV. I think he scored twice in the last time he played against them. He's a player that people at Rangers have followed for a long time. We tried to sign him even before his time with Feyenoord. So when the opportunity came for him to come into Rangers, I was delighted we could do it. He obviously come off of probably 2 or 3 months of inactivity. And with every game at the moment, he's looking stronger and more like the player that I think he can be.
I'd like to ask you about Danilo. It's his first season with Rangers in this season, but his last 6 seasons he played in Netherlands. So probably he knows PSV so much better than anyone else in the club. Mm-hmm. This can help you in some way, if he can just help you with some information. And how do you see his career in Rangers as this is his first season in the club?
Yeah, obviously we have Sam as well, who came through him in the PSV academy, and we have Danilo and Cyril that all played in Holland, so they've been a help in terms of their views. When I first met Danilo is a Corintiano and I'm a Sao Paulino, so therefore the relationship nearly broke in the very first meeting. So no, look, he is a really, really good boy in terms of his personality. He lights up the room, he's very bubbly. It's been a lot of change in his life in the last few weeks, moving over, staying in a hotel, then finally moving into his own house, and his fiance coming over and everything. So I think he's really enjoying it. The teammates have been really good to him. I think he's come out and said that himself, and I think the goals he's had 3 starts and scored 2 goals. That will really help him. I think he's a player that the fans are excited about. Certainly when his name came up, it was a player that got into everybody's imagination, and now it's over the season. We're expecting him to be a big player. You know, his goal scoring per minute rate in Holland, both at Ajax, Feyenoord and 20, was very high.
You spent short time in Brazil. It was 6 years ago, if I'm not wrong. That time, even short time in Brazil, that helped you in some way now as a coach, not as assistant, as you were before?
Yeah, obviously I worked with a hugely famous player there, an icon in Rogério Ceni in his first job, and came home and did the same thing for Steven, really, was the coach alongside the icon. It was an unbelievable experience. It's a huge club. They're in a fantastic moment right now in the final of the Copa do Brasil. It'd be a huge game against Flamengo for Sao Paulo. What I learned when my time there was invaluable in the 6 or 7 months I was there. It was nearly 40 games and just the different styles and the different coaches, but it helped me greatly in my time here with someone like Alfredo Morelos, understanding a little bit more about South American culture and how players see the game. And it was a huge push forward. It's not something many people, certainly from the UK, have had an opportunity to do, so I feel hugely privileged for that time.
When you left Brazil, you were really frustrated with your experience there. You pretend someday maybe return to work in South America?
Yeah, my Portuguese is not perfect, but it's good enough. And one day maybe. The clubs there are huge. Obviously, the club that I worked in, it's a mega club, and Morumbi is an incredible stadium. The frustration was more in the administration, nothing to do with the football.
Defensively, do you think the team will be able to cope comfortably tomorrow? Because PSV, I think, have scored 12 goals in 4 games so far, a lot of pace down the wings. Will that be a different challenge for your fullbacks to cope with compared to last week, for example?
No, it'll be a huge challenge for sure. It's the biggest test so far, so the sort of result will be after the game tomorrow night. How did we do? And the boys know they're in for a tough challenge. It's important that we throw a lot back at Eindhoven as well and try and get them on the back foot.
Hi, Michael, from Brazilian media as well. I was talking to Danilo earlier, and he mentioned that you exchange between Portuguese and English during the training sessions. Is it a good practice for you to remember that language? And also I heard that you miss churrasco, our barbecue.
Yeah, listen, it's a lovely thing that you can help him a little bit in his Portuguese. What I find is he really wants to work on his English. His English is actually very, very good from his time in Holland, and it's important. You know, our squad's not the most multinational in terms of languages, but it's certainly important now as you work up the levels. It was something I learned very early, that you have to learn the second language, so whether it be Spanish or Portuguese. You like to try and speak to the players as best you can, but please don't try and test me now on my Portuguese or embarrass me.